So, you know, at Sweetwater, they have some really great instrument cables, but really, you know, I think that the move is really just about getting, you know, the Mogami 2524 and then going ahead and then pairing it with something like this Neutrik, which is what I have here. Now, they have versions of this that are already pre-made for you. They're about $50. And the thing I'd say about instrument cables is if you're going to invest in them, if you're going to invest money in instrument cables, the one to invest in is the first one, the one that goes from your guitar into your pedal board. Because that's the place where there isn't going to be any buffering occurring unless you have active pickups or some sort of preamp, which most of you probably will not. And that's where the pickups and everything is going to be completely seen by the guitar. And that's the one where you really are going to be able to change the tone the most, depending on what instrument cable you use. Because once you go into one of the high quality buffers that I talked about on here, you know, whether you're getting the $69 TC Electronic or you're getting the $220 Mesa Boogie, from that point forward, assuming that you're using decent quality cables on the board, you know, just like, you know, Mogami 2319, that's like, you know, 40 cents a foot or something like that if you were to use that. Or, you know, fill in the blank type of, you know, standard cable that you would use on a pedal board for patch cables. After that buffer, those are going to have, you know, very little difference. You know, a lot of that capacitance is going to be presumably erased, you know, presuming that you use high quality buffers like I've talked about. But what isn't going to be buffered at all is that first cable that's going into the system. So if you start messing around with using cables that have different EQs, things like that, you're actually going to be able to get a variety of different tones. So from Sweetwater, you know, of course they sell Mogami. That's usually my go-to. But sometimes it's nice to have a couple of other flavors in there if you want to mess around with maybe having one cable that's a little bit brighter. One that Sweetwater sells that I really like is made by Astrope. And if you check out my Sweetwater video that I did with them about 5 pedalboard upgrades, you know, that was published a few weeks ago, they show that Astrope cable. For some reason, my slide for Astrope, I can't get it to come up, so I'm not sure what happened here. But in any case, that Astrope cable is really nice. It's actually made by Fishman, but Astrope is kind of its own division of Fishman. Really great high-quality cable. Guys like Dave Grissom use it. You know, David Grissom, who's got that signature PRS guitar, the DGT. That's a really great one. And then if you want something that's kind of really fat, one that Sweetwater sells that I really love is the Lava Soar. And the cool thing that, like this Mogami 2524, you can also buy the Lava Soar in bulk from Sweetwater, and then you can terminate it with your own ends here with the Neutrik ends. And they also have right angle versions of this. And again, I have given you a video where I show about how to, you know, solder cables just like this. So if you wanted to give it a try, maybe just try buying 10 feet and buying 2 connectors and seeing if you're able to do it yourself. Because man, once you learn this skill and you got it down, you learn to fish on this stuff, you know, you'll never have to buy any expensive cables again. You can just buy the raw materials and you can do it yourself. So to summarize, I really like Mogami. If you're going to spend money, spend it on that very first cable that goes from the guitar into the amplifier. That's really the one you want to spend money on. The ones I really like are the Mogami 2524, like the one here. I also really like the Astrope one, which is made by Fishman. That's also something available at Sweetwater. And then the other one is the Lava Soar. Really good. Has a nice fat kind of low end thing that I really dig. It attenuates the highs a little bit, but sometimes that can be a thing that you want depending on what kind of instrument you have. You have a Telecaster, super bright. You might want to kind of cut off some of those top end, those really high highs, and you maybe don't want to use a coily cable to try to tame that down. You know, so that could be a really nice way to do it to get some of that fatness. So basically, you're kind of using that first cable almost like an EQ, like a pre-EQ before it goes into that entire pedal board. Because we have to remember that cables are basically like filters. You know, when we talk about cables, we talk about capacitance. And if we think of the root word of capacitance, it's capacitor, right? So it's basically like you're choosing a capacitor in essence, just like when you choose capacitors on your guitars, on your tone controls, and your volume controls, it makes them react differently. It can roll things off differently. And our cables are doing that very same thing. They're a filter for the entire pedal board. So that first cable is the filter that actually influences everything else that comes after that. So that's the one you really want to invest in. After all those buffers, just using something that's really high quality, shielded, and as low as capacitance as you can get for the budget is going to be fine. But that first cable is going to have a big impact. So if you're going to spend your money on one cable, that's the place that I would do it, and keep it as short as you presumably could. You know, 10 feet is probably an ideal length. Some people, you know, they may need to go on the ego ramp, you know, on the rock concerts, and they need to have a 50-foot cable. It probably isn't going to sound as good as a 10-foot, but, you know, as short as you can get away with in your situation is good.